What is your worst blinded by horniness story of your teenage years? Story 1. When I was 15 in high school, a group of my friends were talking about easy ways to score. After a couple of hours of conversation, we came up with the idea of going to the sex offender registry and looking up women that had offended near us and showing up in their place since the address is in the registry. This was in the early days of the internet, 2005, so a couple of days after that conversation I pulled up the sex offenders registry and looked up my options. There was hundreds of men in there, some of which I had seen around town, but only 2 women in total, and only one of those was in walking distance. So I MapQuest and printed her address and picture and set off to her place. When I get there and see that it was in the projects, I had a thought that this was a terrible idea. I didn't have a plan, I was in the projects and I had no idea of the dangers I was placing myself in. Nevertheless, I pushed on. I get to the building and go to the 3rd floor and knock on the door. My heart is racing and my cock is throbbing. She opens the door and a very pronounced smell of Pall Malls comes out, and I gaze upon this specimen, greasy-looking white lady in her 40s, house clothes with stains, and the cigarette smelled very strongly in her scraggly brown hair. When she said, "How can I help you?" I just said, "Ma'am, I don't want to cause you any trouble, but I just walked 7 miles because I looked you up in the offenders registry hoping to get solely offended by you." The lady turned red in anger and shoved me in her apartment. She sat me in her couch and gave me a long speech about being safe and how stupid I was. When she was done, me still being blinded by my hormones, asked, "So can I at least get something done to me?" I did walk this long. The lady gets mad again and tells me, "Is this what you want?" and proceeds to blow me. I came very quickly into the process, and then when I had my post-nut clarity, I realized how gross this lady was and how absolutely wrong I was. I started crying. I told her, "I'm sorry, I harassed you and came in your mouth." She swallowed my load, got up, went to the kitchen and gave me a glass of Kool-Aid. She told me to take it easy and not tell anyone. A couple of weeks go by and back in school with my friends the conversation pops up again. This time I just tell them to jack off and forget about it. Edit 2, thanks for all the awards. I just want to send my love to everyone that has posted that they were in an abusive or toxic relationship. I didn't expect those types of responses on this post, but if you're in a situation like that, talk to someone about getting help. No one deserves to be treated that way. Story 2. Met a beautiful girl while visiting my dad on summer vacation. We made out every day, things started progressing, but she wouldn't go all the way without being BF/GF, and she wouldn't go out with me because I was just there for the summer. So, I end up moving in with my dad, but I get enrolled in a different school. This is also a turn off for her. Spent the rest of the school year away from my friends and living at my dad's, super depressed. Story 3. In my country there's many exchange students, usually from Europe. In my classroom there was this Italian boy who fell in love with a girl from our country. 1 year after graduation, dude left everything in his country and came back to win his love since distance relationship wasn't working. Girl was living with another dude. My boy was devastated. We had to reunite money for him to go back as he is pretty useless and barely spoke Spanish, therefore unable to catch an actual job here. Shit happens, bro. Story 4. Banged the first girl that showed interest. If I had any standards, I wouldn't have. But she ended up faking pregnancy, stalking me and all my friends for 6 months, went to prison, got out and actually got pregnant, then claimed she named the child after me. Story 5. Happened to my brother. He was actually popular among the crazies. I was often jealous of how many hot chicks went after him until I caught on to the strong tendency for him to have scares of the "OMG I'm pregnant, gimme money, just kidding, no preggers" variety. And the stalking and him having to threaten restraining orders. Must have been slinging some amazing D. Story 6. So when I was 19 I started dating a girl. Her bedroom has a stair that leads you to an attic where there was another bed where we used to buck. The interesting part is that I used to go to her house like 2 a.m. while her parents were sleeping, and then I couldn't leave the house until the next day, not being able to go to the bathroom. So I had to pee in a bottle and take the bottle to my house. To be fair, we had sex the entire day, which was kind of worth it. Story 7. We think we're so slick as teens, but we aren't. One time during my teenage years I just got home after fingering my GF. My dad and his friend were in the living room watching sports. I go to the sink and immediately wash my hands. My dad's friend sees this and goes, "You know, when I was your age and I had just hung out with a girl, the first thing I did when I got home was wash my hands too." LOL, these old buckers live the same life. We gotta stop fooling ourselves. Story 8. My parents were high school sweethearts except my dad was 3 years older, think senior with freshman. My godfather is my dad's best friend and he spilled the beans on their juicy escapades. Let's just say I've gotten scolded by them for much tamer things. My dad's bachelor party ended with him stripped and handcuffed to a Main Street light post. I have big shoes to fill. I should also mention he's a serial cheater and my mom calls him Pinga Dulce, aka Sweet D. Story 9. It was the day before I was leaving for college and I was doing a minor tune-up and changing the oil on my car. Mom called me ANS, said my girlfriend was on the phone for me. This was 1979, so no cell phones. I went in the house and took the phone, and she said she had a special present for me, so I should come over as soon as I can. I was a bit greasy and dirty, so I jumped into the shower real quick, got cleaned up and ran out to my car, a 69 Pontiac Catalina with a pointy beak. Since I thought the special present was going to be one of her special blowjobs, my pants known was somewhat erect and I was standing a bit too close to the car when I slammed the hood shut. And managed to get the tip of my D, wrapped in underwear and jeans, stuck between the beak and the car. Ouch. Anyway, I managed to extricate myself and went back inside to take a look at the damage. There was a little blood blister on the head of my D, and it hurt. Figuring that I could still get a BJ, I quickly went over to her house and, while the special present wasn't one of her fantastic blowjobs, but a really nice sweater. TLDR, thought I was going to get a blowjob, got a sweater and mangled my D in the process. Story 10. Was like 17 at the time, and was high and buzzed, and I met this girl in a movie theater and managed to hit it off with her. We then started kissing and things started getting heavy and we wanted to do it so bad, so with little options we went to the back of the movie theater where a huge dumpster was and had sex there on top of the dumpster with trash decorating the surrounding area. If you made it this far, please consider pressing the subscribe and like button. Now continue to the video. Story 11. Basically bucking my first serious girlfriend while my/her parents were home. I can't tell you how many times I was banging her on the floor while her mom was in the next room watching TV or while my parents were downstairs. Either they were deaf or definitely heard and just didn't say anything. Looking back, it was really stupid and disrespectful, but those teenage hormones were in fur. Story 12. So one time 14-year-old me and my GF were groping each other her basement couch, eventually lead to me violently finger banging her under the blanket until her mom came down and told us it was getting late and she had to drive me home. It wasn't until I got home and was watching TV with my parents that I realized my index and middle fingers and part of my hand is covered in dry blood. It was at that moment I realized why my GF was feeling sick and her stomach was hurting, which she told me at some point during the night. Story 13. Alright. So I've only ever shared this story once before. I was 15, maybe 16 at the time. Hanging out with my two best friends one weekend, and one mentions his cousins were coming to town and they had plans to head to the next state over to go rock climbing and wanted to invite us to come along. The day comes, his cousins arrive, and one of them just happens to be one of the most attractive girls I had ever met, and we quickly clicked. While the time comes for us to pile into the 7-seater car and head out, in the front are both of my friends' dads, in the middle are my friends and the girl's older brother, then myself and the girl in the very back. We get to the rock climbing gym and have a blast for a few hours and head home with the same seating arrangements. This is now when me and the girl started to get frisky and pretty much just playing with each other for the majority of the 2-hour car ride. I had to change my pants the minute we got back to town, but it doesn't end there. Only her and her brother came rock climbing, but her whole family came to town with them, parents, other brothers, and grandparents. So after we're back and eat dinner, everyone settles down with blankets and such in their huge living room to watch a movie for the night, and well, me and girl continue our time from the car, only now, surrounded by literally her entire family, including my two best friends. I've never again experienced a mix of such fear, shame, and pleasure. And the kicker is that to this day, I still can't watch certain parts of the first Lord of the Rings movie without instantly getting hard. If you made it this far, thanks for reading and have a good day now knowing one of my darker secrets. Story 14. I dated a 20-year-old woman when I was a freshman and was convinced that she wasn't a creep and a loser because she was hot and interested in me. She was my friend's cousin. I spent most of the summers hanging out with him because I could walk to his house and we could ride bikes to the lake or river. Towards the end of summer he started asking his cousin to drive us because it was miserably hot riding bikes. After a week or so she added me on MySpace, because we didn't have cell phones. That was how we initially communicated. Story 15. My first real girlfriend, who I lost my virginity to, I actually became a vegetarian for her because she was one as well. The day she broke up with me I shot my ass over to Wendy's and ate 40 chicken nuggets. Story 16. Stole my cousin's car keys when I was a sophomore in high school. He was a junior, so I could finger a girl in his car in the parking lot during passing period. It was hot as shit and we were both drenched in sweat by the end. Story 17. Reminded me of the time I took mom's van. It was common for me to run errands and such at 16. Pulled the seats out because I needed extra space to do the frisky stuff with my then GF now wife, put some blankets in there. We went to Garden of the Gods in Colorado at night. Had great time and dropped her off. Decided not to put the seats back in at night, so I don't make extra noise. In the morning my dad asks me why the seats are out. I say it's for fuel efficiency. Not sure if he knew. Story 18. When I was 16 my first girlfriend lived about 5 miles away. Being horny teenagers, we met up every chance we got. I took the bus to school and one of my bus stops just happened to be half a mile from her house, so one day we decided I should swing by. It was supposed to storm that day, but being a teenager and all I paid no attention. So I walked to her house from the bus stop and she sneaks me into her house before her parents come home and we do the deed. They of course came home at the tail end of it, so she had to sneak me out the back, and at this point it was storming pretty good. Her backyard leads into a huge hill that ends in a sidewalk and a very busy street. I started slowly walking down this hill thinking this ain't so bad, I should just run until the end and predictably face plant down the hill, past the sidewalk and into the street. I scrambled to my feet and run back to the sidewalk, and thankfully cars were a ways away. At this point it was raining hard and just getting into dusk. I realized I left a shoe in the middle of the street and for some reason ran back into the middle of the street, grabbed it and ran back just in time for cars to honk and fly by. Walked the 5 miles home with a shit-eating grin on my face. Story 19. I ran 4 miles to lose my V-card, and then my mom kept calling during my run home since they were going to a restaurant and waiting on me to get home. I lied and lied until they finally caught me and figured out I was still about 2 miles away running home from the girl's house. I cried because they took my phone away. LOL. Story 20. Odd story. So a couple weeks after I broke up with my ex I had a one-night stand with some girl I met on social media. So the next day I'm just carrying on with myself and this random account hits me up out of nowhere saying, "I'm glad you enjoyed yourself." I wasn't sure if I should be mad or what, but I figured that out immediately when I started cussing them out. It was my ex. So after that I blocked that account of her and texted the girl I had a one-night stand with asking if she knew who my ex was, and she says yes. I was heated at this point and she said she didn't know her personally but that she randomly texted her and told her about me. So basically my ex hooked me up with somebody without me even knowing. My ex did a couple other odd things after we broke up. I'm over all of that now and it's past me, but oh boy that was a real clusterfuck. Story 21. When I was 16, my at the time GF's family was away and they didn't want us hanging out, so she was staying at a friend's house. For reference, I was in grade 11 and she was in grade 9, so like 14 or something. We hadn't had intercourses yet, we were experimenting with other stuff. Fast forward to her telling me her friend's family is out of the house and me riding my bike 30 kilometers to go and get a dry handy and her to squirt all over their couch, white, realizing they were about to come home. I left her to deal with the mess, don't hate we did the math, and she figured she could at least blame it on the dog versus me being at their house while I specifically was told to not even be with a country mile of it, so she being 14 and having no idea how to clean it started rubbing baking soda on it with water. I missed the family coming home by like 3 minutes after jumping their neighbor's fence with my bike and fleeing the scene like I robbed a bank. The story was solid until she realized they had taken the dog with them mid-explanation to her friend's parents. Her friend was really pissed off because she knew exactly what had happened, reasonable, and the friendship kind of fell off after that, for other slightly related reasons, so did our relationship. Story 22. Back when I was 15 I was on stage crew and was working in the sound booth of the theater. The sole girl on stage crew had a crush on me and ended up with lucky me getting a BJ in said sound booth during one of our regular after-school techie days, no actors or audience, just a techie day. Little did we know that the sound booth mic that acts as a PA for the rest of the theater was on. The rest of the tech crew that totaled about 8 other guys and the tech director heard. Story 23. I bucked a girl on a whim. We were at her house with some friends and my best friend just asks if I want to buck her and I said yeah. We bucked that night and became buck buddies. She always led me to her brother's room to do it and I thought that was weird. Then I started noticing her mom was always inviting me over, like in a weird way. Eventually found out that she didn't let me in her room because she had pictures of her boyfriend, who was in the army, who was too old for her legally, and was a buddy of mine. Don't know why her mom always wanted me there, but yeah, I had to nope out of that. Should have seen the signs when she wouldn't let me see her room, lol.